Okay, so here we are. So in this video, what we need to do is actually continue with styling our mini contact web part based on displaying the phone number. And then also this photo should be above or stacked on top of the user's information versus to the left. Now, in order to do this, so we try to use the out-of-the-box SAS modules for styling and to try to override some of the CSS classes. For example, so if you go into inspect, you will see that the persona optional text is where our phone number lives. And this is flagged as default, possibly because we are not setting the availability for the user, which is another property on the persona component. So what we want to do is we just want to simply come in here and override this guy within our CSS. So if we come in here to our definition and then just drop this guy here, we only need one of them. We only need the optional. And then do a display block. That should reveal it. And we save this off. And obviously this is not going to work. So I say obviously because we would have done it by now. So it's not working, and the reason why it's not working is that this guy here, oops, other been defined incorrectly. We'll say this all. This guy here gets renamed when it's converted to the module, right? So it gets renamed to this underscore BB. It has an additional suffix. Well, that stinks because with the additional suffix, it's not targeting the predefined class that comes with the component. So the workaround is to create your separate SAS module, your separate SAS file. And what are we going to do? I'm going to just put this at the root of the web part, only because that's where I tested. I'm sure we probably could put it in the components folder where it's probably a more natural fit. But let's put it at the root. And what we're going to do, we're going to call this mini contacts dot overrides dot SCSS. Yeah, I think that's spelled right. Now, when this gets created, did I write the SCSS? Okay. So when this guy gets created, I was expecting it to create a module file for this as well. And for some odd reason, it did not do that. Let's see what's going on here. Well, when this guy gets created, there should be a module file. Let's continue to work with it and see if it eventually gets created. And then here, what we can do, we can define a container class. So just call it mini contacts overrides, right? And then here, let's paste in the guy that we wanted to paste in the first place. Okay, and then save this all. There we go. So once we save inside the file, you will see this module file gets created. And this is going to happen automatically. I think there are some tasks that are wired up for that. The difference is that when you click into this guy, you do not get this type of structure where it's defining, well, I guess this would have to be manual anyway, defining the constants and then loading that out. And I think it's not doing that because we drop off, maybe it's looking at this keyword module, but based on the blog post that I read up on is if you don't include this, it does not include all of this renaming and all this other good stuff, which is great because that's exactly what we want. And now we have this defined. We need to reference this guy. Now the reference is kind of tricky and it's not intuitive, but basically you just need to drop this required statement here. The good news is it's predefined for you. And you want to drop this inside of your web part. So let's just make this the last item. I'm not sure if ordering has a great impact based on what we want to do. So then we save this off. So basically, just make a reference to the CSS inside of the web part, not the component file. I haven't tested this with the component file, so test that out. It may work. It should work. I mean, technically, I don't see any reason why it should not. But based on the blog post, this was the expected place to drop it in. Okay, so now we have that here. And then the last thing we need to do, because we defined this class, we just need to reference it inside of our component. So we just go to our main component markup. Let's see, where are we? That's private. Okay, so all of our private, so we should define this guy here. So then just do the class name and then set it equal to that exact class name, right? There is no styles variable to pull or object to pull these out of. So this is just like standard HTML, okay? And CSS referencing outside of the weird attribute name. Okay, so now we should be all wired up. Let me just do a file, save all, and then we come to this guy, and the expectation is that once we hit refresh, we should see the phone number if we have everything wired up. Now we do. Okay, and this is really good. I mean, this is exactly what we need. It's a little bit counterintuitive, just because this required statement here references a CSS that we do not see here. Okay, but the good news is everything that we need as far as like the path reference and the exact name and all this other good stuff is given to us within the module. So it was just simply a copy and paste, but just knowing where to drop that in is key. These guys here, you can just leave these as is. Obviously, we want to rename this to our web part, so many contacts. And if you wanted to leverage these still, there's no reason why we still could not leverage these. So if we go into the components and then we do an import styles, or actually leave this blank so I make sure I get the right spelling. Right, so you just want to import this from mini contacts dot module dot, let's see, SS, right, without the TS. And then this guy should just be, what do you have for me? Styles. Yeah. Oh, you have to do, oh, it's already referenced. Never mind. So this guy is still there. Sorry for that. You will not get those 2 minutes back. All right, so here, the point I'm trying to make is that you can still reference these guys here. So if you still wanted to do include this, we did this in the tic-tac-toe. It was it CSS? You have to do the brackets. There's some method. Oh, it's not coming in now. I think there was a special method you had to use in order to concatenate these guys. And I thought it was CSS. Let's give me a weird squiggly. I can't remember, but this was in the tic-tac-toe module to where if you wanted to use this in conjunction with a static text, you had to include it this way. Not sure why, but let's do this. Let's just do styles, because this should also work too, right? If we did styles dot, and let's just bring in contacts, and then space, then the hard-coded stuff. Now what we probably want to do is just wrap this whole thing into double quotes. All right, so I think that should work. That may not work. We'll see. So if it blows up, we know why. But there's a CSS reference. I can't think of it now, but we covered that in a tic-tac-toe video to actually bring that in. Okay, it looks like this is working. Let me see. So we should see a reference to, no, I didn't bring it in correctly. Yeah, so you definitely need that method in order to bring this in correctly. Yeah, it's just treating it as a literal. Okay. But anyway, I'll find that out. I'll post that into the description of this video. But anyway, we have this. And I was going to say that you bring both of those guys in with the understanding that you leverage the overrides only for the overrides needed for the UI component, right? And then for other general styling within the web part itself or the component itself, you want to leverage this guy here. And I think this model here with the overrides is really important because if you're working with a designer, they will obviously have a lot of the CSS and HTML structure already predefined in the class names for that HTML markup predefined and included. And if you are stuck with just this model, you would have to go, yeah, you can come in here and copy and paste all of their predefined classes, but the second tedious step would be everywhere that they have, for example, label defined, you would have to go out there and replace it with the styles dot label class, because when it's rendered, it gets that additional suffix. So it becomes a pain in the butt to where you have to go through and remodify those. But if you use this model here, you can just drop in their CSS as defined. And then here, you just drop in their markup as defined. I probably just have to do a find and replace for CSS and convert those to class name, and then you're off to the races. Okay, so let's take a closer look at what we need to do here. Obviously, we probably want to get some more spacing here. So let's target the outer container, the MS persona. So now I can just go into my overrides and define this guy here. And then let's just do a margin bottom 50, if you spell margin right. Margin bottom. Save this off. Come here, refresh it. Okay, yeah, so that gives us enough space there. And then the other piece is that we want to get this image on the top. Now I play around with this, and this was not intuitive at all. It actually took me a couple of tries to get it right. But basically, if you look at this markup structure, you have the MS persona, which is the container. Then you have a container for the image. Then you have the container for the profile details. This guy here is what's forcing these two divs to be side by side. And the name of that is, and this is one I'm not familiar with, it says display flex. So if you change this to block, it then stacks them, which is the natural order of for divs, right? It's just to stack them, then usually you do a float or something like that to get them side by side. So let's go ahead and override MS persona and then put a display block there. Okay, so we go refresh, and now we should be good to go. Now, the other thing we want to do, we want to center this image or above the split between the names. So there should be a width here. Yeah, you see the width there that's defined for the container. So we want this guy to be in the middle of that width or the center of that. So if you go to the image area, let's just override this. It'll be easier to play with our overwritten class in the console versus trying to append what they already have. So I'm gonna take a look. So I tried a couple of things. I tried to text align center, that didn't work. So I had to resort to margin left and right auto. And that seemed to center things a little bit, right? Let's see, auto, and save this all. and then hit refresh. Oh, what happened? Left auto, right auto. Okay, I didn't expect that to go all the way to the right. What's going on here? Oh, you know what? It's probably because, yeah, no, it is in the middle. So hat maker, so now the details is not in the middle. Right, so let's go to details. Persona detail. This is text left. We actually want this to be text center. All right, so it seems to do the trick. So once we align our details, and everything should be in the middle of the overall container. So now we need to overwrite this guy with text center. That's not image area, it should be details, right? Persona. Oh, my copy didn't work for some odd reason. There we go. So this guy just requires the text align center. All right, save this all, refresh it. How are we doing? Just thinking. Okay, still thinking. So really, I mean, that's basically it. Oh, that didn't do it. Okay, I remember this one. So if you take a look at this guy, persona details, this is defined in a style tag, which is after our CSS being referenced, right? So the style is going to have a higher, from a cascading standpoint, it's going to have a higher priority because it's closer to the markup. So in order to get this to stick, we have to use the important flag, right? And you want to definitely use that sparingly, because once you do an important, it's hard to, you just kind of circumvent the whole cascading cycle or structure. All right, so that's that. And I think for the most part, that's it. Oh, we want to get some, thinking we probably need a little bit more spacing between these guys. How much more spacing do we need? Let's just go here. Persona. Where are we? Let's bring this up so I can see. All right, so we're at 50 now. How's 70? So it's a nice even round number. 68 seems to do the trick, but let's round it off to 70. Oops, not 57, 70. Save this all. And now we're good to go. We should be good to go. All right. So now we're somewhat kind of a little bit matching our markup. And that's how you do the styling. And obviously, if we wanted to, I think this is a little bit too big. So, obviously we can come in here and restyle this. But this styling is the one that I think we probably want to use the regular styling for their web part, right? The module type style versus the override. Because this override, again, just a separation of concern, you want to preserve this for when you need to override the Office UI component. But any other general style, like if I wanted to put a background color on this, or if I wanted to resize any other components or HTML that we control, and we control the CSS naming for, use the general, right? So that way you stay in the context of your out of the box web part project structure. Okay, so that's that. And we can play around with what this looks like in mobile, just to make sure we're still responsive. Let me kill this over here. Sometimes running that console slow things down a bit. How are we looking? Yeah, so we're stacked, single column, still responding. We didn't screw up anything. And this is another thing about the using the Office UI Fabric component is that when, it's also handling the overflow of in the event you get a large name or something along those lines. So it seems to be handling that gracefully. And that's nothing that we had to do special, right? We don't have to become UI, CSS, responsive design experts, especially when you use it. And that's one of the benefits of using those Office UI Fabric components. It just saves you a lot from the styling, and you just focus on the data and the business logic and getting it to work. So there we have it. So I think I'm gonna wrap this up. The next video, that's gonna be the end of the series. This was like the bonus to, the mini web part series. I'm gonna wrap that series up. I know we're leaving a few requirements on the table as far as like popping this open, using a modal window to view that person's profile to get more details and all this other good stuff. Definitely try that on your own. If there's a lot of response that says, hey, can you actually do that piece because we feel that's important, I can definitely add that into another video or try it out. Or if I try it out and because I really want to get to this other challenge, but if I do try it out and I figure it out, I would definitely shoot a video on that. But in the next video, which I think is a very important piece, is that let's go through the deployment process. Like, how do you get this deployed to work actually in SharePoint without running this in the workbench within the tenant? And the natural way of doing that, let me just pop this over here. The natural way of doing that, which we're not going to follow, is to deploy this in Azure. And they really have all of this primed out to actually get this to work seamlessly with Azure, because you do a deploy. I forget what the switches are for the Go, but you do kind of like a publish or package solution or something like that. That packages up, and then there's another switch to where you can say deploy to CDN, and because you give it the access key and all the information that's needed for your CDN in Azure using the storage account, this will actually push those files out there. The needed files that needed to run your web part, it will push those out. The problem with that approach is that if you're just doing custom web parts, and especially if your organization does not have Azure configured outside of what's required to run your tenant, and you get, for the Azure AD and all those other stuff, it's kind of heavy to spin up an instance of Azure storage account just to host these JS files, especially when there are other solutions. So the piece that I'm gonna look into, and this is one that just been released probably 4 weeks ago from the date of this video, is in GA. It's the O365 CDN, which I think is a natural fit, right? I mean, the web parts in SharePoint, why not have your JS and CS files in SharePoint as well, relative to those web parts? And that's what I'm gonna look into. And then, so we're gonna skip over the deploy to Azure storage piece. And then I think there is a CDN reference that you must reference somewhere in here. Here we go, deploy the CDN path. Oh no, that's deploy CDN path. I don't know, we'll figure it out. So that's, it's this guy here, CDN base path. And basically what this is going to do, that's going to prefix all of your CSS and JS files that are being referenced within your web part with your CDN URL. And then that way everything kind of works as expected. So again, this is one that we'll take a look at. I'll investigate the steps and run through the steps on how to deploy this to the O365 CDN, and shoot a video, and we'll go through that deployment, and I think we'll be good to go. I think that's a lot of detail and information on how we can kind of go forth and build our React web parts. Okay, all right, take care. So I'll catch you in the next video when we actually go through the deployment process. In the meantime, please give me some feedback. Use the comments of either the YouTube video, or find me on LinkedIn and post there, or on Facebook and post there. All right, take care.